Help me. I can't walk. Those 4 words changed everything. Ruby Morrison was lying in a dirty Manhattan alley, rain mixing with blood on her face, ribs screaming with every breath, and she was begging a complete stranger not to leave her to die like garbage in the street. She had no idea that stranger was Dante Moretti, the most dangerous man in New York City. A mafia boss who could end lives with a phone call. A man feared by politicians, cops, and criminals alike. And she had absolutely no idea that the 3 men who attacked her just signed their own death warrants. Because nobody, and I mean nobody, hurt someone on Dante Moretti's streets and lives to brag about it. Before we dive into this insane story of revenge, justice, and a broke singer who accidentally got a mafia boss to fall in love with her, I need you to do something right now. Smash that subscribe button like your life depends on it. Hit that like button so hard it breaks your screen. Drop a comment telling me. 12 hours earlier, Ruby Morrison's biggest problem was singing jazz to an empty bar. The Velvet Room was supposed to be classy. Red velvet curtains, dim lighting, cocktails with fancy names. But really? It was a dive bar in downtown Manhattan, trying really hard to pretend it wasn't falling apart. The velvet was stained. The lighting was broken. And the cocktails tasted like regret, mixed with cheap vodka. Ruby stood on that tiny stage at 11 p.m. on a rainy Tuesday, singing her heart out to exactly 7 people. 7. And 3 of them were only there because it was raining too hard to leave. She was 26 years old. She'd come to New York 4 years ago with dreams bigger than the Empire State Building. She was going to be discovered. She was going to be famous. She was going to make her mother proud. Instead, she was working 3 jobs just to survive. Bartender at a coffee shop from 6 a.m. to 2 p.m., Uber driver on weekends, and singer at the Velvet Room Tuesday through Thursday nights for $200 a week. She sent half of that money to her mother in Ohio, staged for cancer, medical bills piling up like snow in winter, hope fading faster than Ruby's dreams. But she kept singing. Because what else could she do? Give up? Go back to Ohio with her tail between her legs and admit New York had beaten her? Not yet. Not tonight. Ruby finished her set, a haunting version of a classic jazz standard that deserved better than this room, and the scattered applause felt like pity. She smiled anyway. Professionalism, even when your soul was dying. Great set, Ruby, Marco the bartender said without looking up from his phone. He said the same thing every night. It meant nothing. Ruby changed out of her performance dress in the bathroom that smelled like cigarettes and broken dreams, pulled on jeans and a hoodie, and headed out into the rain at midnight. The subway was 10 minutes away, but there was a shortcut through the alley that saved time, and Ruby was exhausted. Bone tired. Soul tired. The kind of tired that makes you stupid. She took the shortcut. Biggest mistake of her life. The alley was dark, rain pouring down in sheets, puddles reflecting streetlights like broken mirrors. Ruby pulled her hood up and walked fast, headphones in, trying to pretend she wasn't scared even though every woman in New York knows that walking alone at night is playing Russian roulette with your safety. She didn't hear them coming. 3 men stepped out from the shadows like wolves who'd been waiting for prey. Ruby's blood turned to ice. She recognized the one in front, Trevor Walsh. Trust fund brat. Wall Street trader. He'd been hitting on her at the bar for weeks, getting more aggressive each time she said no. Last week, he'd cornered her after her set. Come on, baby. 1 drink. I'll make it worth your time. Ruby had rejected him in front of his friends. Firmly. Publicly. I'm not interested, Trevor. Please leave me alone. His face had turned red with humiliation. His friends had laughed at him. And Trevor Walsh was not a man who handled rejection well. Now he was here, with 2 friends. And the look in his eyes made Ruby's stomach drop. Well, if it isn't Ruby Morrison, the singer who thinks she's too good for me. Trevor's voice was cold, cruel, soaked with entitlement and rage. Ruby backed up. Trevor, I'm just trying to get home. Please let me pass. Let you pass. Trevor laughed, a sound like breaking glass. You embarrassed me. You made me look like an idiot in front of everyone. You think you can just walk away from that? The other 2 men, Kyle and Jason, she'd learn their names later, spread out, blocking her escape routes. Ruby's heart was pounding. I'm sorry if I hurt your feelings, but... Hurt my feelings? Trevor stepped closer, rain streaming down his face. You stupid girl. I'm going to teach you what happens to women who embarrass Trevor Walsh. Ruby ran. She made it maybe 10 feet before Jason grabbed her hoodie and yanked her backward. She hit the ground hard, concrete scraping her hands, rain and mud soaking through her clothes. "Help!" Ruby screamed as loud as her lungs would allow. "Somebody help me." But the alley was empty. The rain was too loud. Nobody was coming. Trevor kicked her in the ribs, a sickening crack that made Ruby's world explode in pain. She tried to fight back, clawed at Jason's face, screamed until her throat was raw, kicked and bit and refused to go down easy. But it was 3 against 1, and they were strong and cruel, and they wanted to destroy her. They beat her until she couldn't stand, until her ribs were broken and her wrist was fractured and her face was bleeding and every breath felt like swallowing glass. Ruby crawled through the mud and rain, vision blurring, tasting blood, hearing their laughter as they walked away like she was nothing. "Teach that bitch a lesson," Trevor said, adjusting his expensive watch. "Come on, guys. Let's get a drink." They left her there, broken, bleeding, dying in a dirty alley in the richest city in the world. Ruby tried to crawl toward the street. Every movement was agony. Her body was shutting down, shock setting in. She was going to die here, alone, and nobody would even know until morning. Then she heard an engine, headlights cut through the rain, a black Rolls-Royce pulling up to a warehouse across the street. The door opened, and a man stepped out. Tall, dangerous, moving with the kind of confidence that comes from knowing you're the most powerful person in any room. Dante Moretti had come to this warehouse for a business meeting. Someone had stolen from him. That someone was about to have a very bad night. But then Dante heard something that made him stop. A sound. Weak. Desperate. Barely human. Whimpering. Dante's enforcer Marcus appeared at his side. "Boss, we should go inside. They're waiting." But Dante was already walking toward the alley, his expensive shoes splashing through puddles, his instincts screaming that something was wrong. He found her in the darkness. A young woman. Broken. Bleeding. Barely breathing. Ruby looked up through swollen eyes and saw a stranger's face. Sharp features. Dark eyes that had seen too much death. A scar along his jawline that told stories she'd never want to hear. She should have been terrified. Instead, she felt hope. "Help me." Ruby's voice was barely a whisper. "I can't walk, please." Marcus appeared behind Dante. "Boss, she's not our problem. We have business. Get the car." Dante's voice was cold, absolute. The voice of a man who gave orders and expected them obeyed without question. "Now." Marcus hesitated for half a second, then ran. Dante knelt down in the mud and rain. This mafia boss in his $3,000 suit, and looked at Ruby with eyes that suddenly weren't cold anymore. They were burning with something Ruby couldn't name. Rage. Pure. Absolute. Volcanic rage. "Who did this to you?" Dante's voice was soft, but Ruby could hear the murder underneath. "3 men, they? I can't." Ruby's words dissolved into sobs. "Chill. I've got you. You're safe now." Dante slid his arms under Ruby's broken body, lifting her as gently as if she were made of glass. "Nobody's going to hurt you again. I promise." Ruby passed out before the Rolls-Royce door closed. And Dante Moretti, the man who'd killed dozens without losing sleep, who ruled New York's underworld with an iron fist, who feared nothing, made a promise to the unconscious woman in his arms. Whoever did this would suffer. Not a quick death. Not a bullet to the head. They would beg for mercy that would never come. They would regret every choice that led them to this moment. They would learn what happens when you hurt someone on Dante Moretti's streets. And they would learn it slowly. Marcus drove through the rain-soaked streets while Dante held Ruby, his shirt soaking with her blood, his mind already calculating revenge. "Find out who she is," Dante said quietly. "Find out who did this." "And Marcus?" "Yes, boss. I want names by morning." The hunt had begun, and 3 men who thought they'd gotten away with it had absolutely no idea that their entire world was about to burn. Ruby woke up in a bedroom that definitely wasn't hers. Her eyes cracked open, and the first thing she saw was a ceiling that probably cost more than her entire year's rent. Crown molding, a crystal chandelier, silk curtains filtering morning light like liquid gold. Where the hell was she? She tried to sit up, and her body screamed in protest. Every muscle, every bone, every inch of skin felt like it had been hit by a truck. The memories came flooding back. The alley, the rain, Trevor's face twisted with rage, the beating, the blood. And then, him. The stranger in the expensive suit who'd carried her like she weighed nothing. Ruby's heart started racing. She was in a stranger's house. A stranger who drove a Rolls-Royce and had the kind of presence that made grown men nervous. What if he was worse than Trevor? What if she'd escaped one nightmare only to wake up in another? The door opened. Ruby grabbed the nearest object, a decorative pillow, like it would do anything against a threat. But the woman who entered wasn't threatening at all. Mid-40s, professional, carrying a medical bag, wearing scrubs under a designer coat. "Easy, honey. I'm Dr. Elena Santos. You're safe here. I'm just checking your injuries." Her voice was calm, soothing, the voice of someone who'd talked down panicking patients 1,000 times. "Where am I? Who brought me here? I need to go." Ruby tried to stand and immediately collapsed back onto the bed, ribs screaming. "You have 3 broken ribs, a fractured wrist, severe bruising, and a mild concussion. You're not going anywhere for at least a week." Elena sat on the edge of the bed, professional but kind. "You're in Dante Moretti's penthouse. He found you last night. Brought you here instead of a hospital." "Why not a hospital?" Elena's expression shifted. "Hospitals ask questions. File police reports. Dante thought you might want to decide how to handle this yourself before involving cops who might not believe you." Ruby's throat tightened. She'd heard the stories. Women reporting assault only to be torn apart by defense lawyers, their lives destroyed while their attackers walked free. "Who is Dante Moretti?" Elena chose her words carefully. "He's a businessman. Powerful. Connected. Someone you want on your side, not against you." Translation: Mafia boss. Ruby should have been terrified. Instead, she felt something unexpected: relief. Because a man like that, a man with power, could do things the police never would. The door opened again, and Ruby's breath stopped. Dante Moretti walked in looking like death in a 3-piece suit. Dark hair, darker eyes, a face that could have been carved from marble by an angry god. He moved like a predator, smooth, controlled, absolutely certain of his dominance in any space he occupied. "You're awake. Good." His voice was deep, measured, the kind of voice that made people listen. "How do you feel?" "Like I got hit by a train." Ruby's voice was stronger than she expected. "Thank you for helping me. I don't know what would have happened if you hadn't. You'd be dead in that alley." Dante said it matter-of-factly, no drama, just truth. "I need names, Ruby. Who did this to you?" Ruby froze. "How do you know my name?" "I know everything." Dante pulled up a chair, sat down, maintaining eye contact that felt like being X-rayed. "Ruby Morrison, 26, singer at the Velvet Room. Originally from Columbus, Ohio. Mother has stage 4 cancer. You work 3 jobs, send half your money home, and you've been in New York for years chasing a dream that's been slowly dying." Ruby felt exposed, vulnerable, like this stranger had peeled back every layer of her life. "How?" "I have resources. Now tell me who hurt you." Ruby's hands shook. Saying their names out loud would make it real. Would start something she couldn't stop. "Trevor Walsh. And his friends Kyle and Jason. I don't know their last names." Dante's expression didn't change, but Elena, still standing by the door, actually stepped back like she'd felt a shift in the air pressure. "Trevor Walsh." Dante repeated the name slowly, tasting it like poison. "Wall Street trader. Son of Richard Walsh, hedge fund manager. Trust fund brat who thinks money makes him untouchable. You know him?" "I know of him. And now I know what he is." Dante stood, pulled out his phone, made a call. "Vincent, I need everything on Trevor Walsh, Kyle Morrison, and Jason Chun. Everything. Criminal records, financials, where they eat breakfast, who they're sleeping with. By noon." He hung up and turned back to Ruby. "They're not going to get away with this. What are you going to do?" Ruby's voice was barely a whisper. Dante's smile was cold, terrifying, beautiful. "What I do best. Make people regret their choices." Over the next 2 days, Ruby recovered in Dante's penthouse while his crew built a case that would destroy 3 lives. Vincent, Dante's tech genius, found security footage from the Velvet Room showing Trevor's aggressive behavior toward Ruby for weeks. Found footage from the alley showing the entire attack from a traffic camera across the street. Found text messages between Trevor, Kyle, and Jason planning the attack. "This girl needs to learn her place. Meet me outside at midnight. Teach her a lesson." Ruby felt sick reading those texts. They'd planned it. Premeditated assault because she'd hurt Trevor's fragile ego. But Vincent found something worse. "Boss, There are at least 4 other women. Maybe more. Vincent pulled up files on his laptop, police reports that went nowhere, hospital records, payoff agreements. These guys have been doing this for years. They assault women, then use family money and connections to make it disappear. Paid settlements. Buried cases. Cops who look the other way. Dante's jaw clenched. Names. I want every victim's name. Ruby watched from the doorway, her heart breaking for women she'd never met who'd suffered and been silenced. That evening, Ruby found Dante on the penthouse terrace overlooking Manhattan. The city sparkled below like a million broken promises. "Why are you helping me?" Ruby asked quietly. "You don't know me. I'm nobody. Just a broke singer who can't even fill a bar." Dante was silent for a long moment, staring at the city like he was deciding whether to burn it down. "I had a sister. Sophia. She was 19. His voice was flat, emotionless, which somehow made it worse. 3 men attacked her after a college party. Beat her. Left her in a parking lot. She died 2 days later from internal bleeding." Ruby's breath stopped. "Dante, I'm so sorry. I found those men myself. Took me 3 weeks. And I made sure they suffered before they died." Dante finally looked at her, his eyes haunted. "But it didn't bring her back. I couldn't save Sophia. But I can save you. And I can make damn sure those animals never hurt anyone again." Ruby felt tears streaming down her face. This dangerous man, this killer, was trying to save her because he couldn't save his sister. "What if I don't want you to kill them?" Ruby's voice was small but firm. "What if I want them to suffer? To lose everything? To feel powerless the way I felt powerless?" Dante's expression shifted. Surprise, then something like respect. "Then we do it your way. We ruin them. Financially, socially, legally. We make them wish they were dead, but keep them alive to feel every second of their destruction. Can you do that?" Dante's smile was predatory. "Ruby, I can do things that would give you nightmares. The only question is how far you want me to go." Ruby thought about Trevor's laugh as he walked away. Thought about Kyle and Jason high-fiving like they'd won a game. Thought about the 4 other women who'd been silenced and paid off. "I want them destroyed. I want them to lose everything they think makes them untouchable. And then I want them in prison where they can't hurt anyone else. Then that's exactly what they'll get." Dante pulled out his phone. "Marcus, we're moving tonight. Before they run." Ruby's heart pounded. "They're going to run?" Vincent found plane tickets. "Trevor's flying to London in 2 days. Probably thinks he's gotten away with it." Ruby felt rage burning through her fear. He's running. He was running. Now he's trapped. Dante put his hand on Ruby's shoulder, gentle despite the violence in his eyes. "Trust me, by this time tomorrow, Trevor Walsh will wish he'd never been born." That night, Ruby couldn't sleep. She lay in the guest bedroom listening to Dante and his crew planning in the next room. Their voices were low, clinical, discussing destruction like it was a business transaction. And maybe it was. Maybe in Dante's world, justice was just another service provided. Around 2 a.m., Ruby got up and found Dante alone in his office, surrounded by files and photographs. "Can't sleep?" he asked without looking up. "I keep seeing their faces, hearing their laughter." Ruby sat down across from him. "Does it ever stop?" The fear. Dante finally looked at her, really looked at her, and for the first time she saw past the mafia boss exterior to the broken man underneath. "No, the fear doesn't stop. You just learn to turn it into something useful. You turn it into fuel, into fire, into the thing that makes you fight instead of hide." Ruby nodded slowly. Teach me how to turn fear into fire." Dante smiled, a real smile this time, not the cold predatory one. "I think you already know how. You survived. You're still here. You're still fighting. That's fire, Ruby. That's pure fire." And in that moment, sitting across from a mafia boss in a penthouse overlooking the city that nearly destroyed her, Ruby Morrison made a decision. She wasn't going to be a victim anymore. She was going to be a survivor. The hunt began at dawn. Dante Moretti didn't believe in quick revenge. Quick was boring. Quick was merciful. And the 3 men who'd left Ruby bleeding in an alley didn't deserve mercy. They deserved annihilation. "We start with Jason Chun," Dante said, spreading files across his conference table like a general planning war. Marcus, Vincent, and 3 other crew members stood ready. Real estate developer. Luxury condos in Brooklyn. Married. 2 kids. Looks perfect on paper. Vincent pulled up documents on his laptop. Except he's laundering money through shell companies. Tax evasion. Fraud. Bribing city officials for building permits. I've got everything. Send it all to the FBI. Anonymously. Today. Dante's voice was ice. I want federal agents kicking down his door before lunch. Ruby watched from the doorway, her heart pounding. This was really happening. Dante wasn't just talking, he was executing. At 10:47 a.m., Jason Shen was in a business meeting when federal agents stormed his office in downtown Manhattan. Guns drawn, badges flashing. His colleagues watched in horror as Jason was handcuffed and dragged out past clients, past his assistant, past the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city he thought he owned. His wife got a call 20 minutes later. Then his lawyer. Then the media, because Vincent had made sure every news outlet in New York got the story, complete with details about Jason's alleged involvement in a violent assault case currently under investigation. By noon, Jason Chen's perfect life was burning. His wife filed for divorce by 2 p.m. His assets were frozen by 3 p.m. His face was on every news website by 4 p.m. with the word predator in the headlines. But Dante wasn't done. That night, Jason sat in a holding cell, still in his expensive suit, still thinking his lawyer could fix this. Then Marcus appeared, slipping past guards who suddenly had urgent business elsewhere, the moment Dante's crew showed up. Marcus leaned close to the bars, his voice low and dangerous. Dante Moretti knows what you did to Ruby Morrison. And he knows about the other women too. Sleep light, Chun. Because prison's going to be very interesting for a man like you. Jason's face went white. He knew that name. Everyone in New York knew Dante Moretti. And if Dante was involved, Jason wasn't just facing legal trouble. He was facing something worse. Next, Dante said, checking his watch like he was scheduling appointments instead of destroying lives. Kyle Morrison. Kyle was having dinner with his family. Wife, 2 young daughters, playing the role of perfect father, when his phone started exploding with notifications. His wife, his boss, his parents. Someone had sent evidence of Kyle's assault on Ruby and 3 other women, to everyone he knew. Photos, hospital records, testimonies, police reports that had been buried with payoff money. His wife grabbed his phone, read the messages, and her face shattered. Tell me this isn't true. Tell me you didn't. She couldn't even finish the sentence. Kyle tried to lie. Baby, it's a mistake. Someone's trying to. His wife threw his phone at his face. Get out. Get out of this house right now before I call the police myself. By midnight, Kyle had lost his job, his family, his reputation. The media found him at a hotel, cameras flashing, reporters screaming questions about the 4 women whose lives he'd tried to destroy. Kyle tried to run, packed a bag, headed to JFK Airport, bought a last-minute ticket to anywhere that wasn't New York. He made it through security, made it to his gate, was about to board when 2 of Dante's men appeared on either side of him like shadows. Mr. Moretti would like a word. Come quietly, or we make a scene. Your choice. Kyle looked around. Airport security, cameras, witnesses everywhere. But he knew. He knew that Dante's reach extended everywhere, that fighting would only make it worse. He went quietly. They took him to a warehouse in Red Hook, the kind of place where screams got swallowed by the sound of shipping containers and diesel engines. Dante was waiting, sitting in a chair like it was a throne, Ruby standing beside him with her arms crossed and fire in her eyes. Kyle fell to his knees the second he saw Dante's face. Please, I'm sorry, I'll do anything, You'll confess. Dante's voice cut through Kyle's begging like a knife through paper. You'll confess to assaulting Ruby. You'll confess to the 3 other women you brutalized. You'll name Trevor and Jason as accomplices. And you'll plead guilty to everything. I can't, my lawyer said. Dante stood up, and Kyle actually whimpered. Your lawyer works for me now. I bought his firm this morning. Every attorney you call works for me. Every judge you might face owes me favors. You have exactly 2 choices, Kyle. Option 1. You confess. You go to prison where I've already made arrangements for your accommodations. Option 2. You refuse, and I let Ruby here decide what happens to you. Kyle looked at Ruby, this small woman with bruises still visible on her face, and saw something that terrified him more than Dante's threats. He saw someone who wanted him to suffer. What kind of arrangements? Kyle's voice was shaking. Dante smiled. The kind where certain inmates Men who have strong feelings about people who hurt women will make sure every single day you're in prison feels like eternity. You'll be looking over your shoulder for the rest of your life. You'll never feel safe again, just like you made Ruby feel. Kyle broke completely, started crying like the coward he was. I'll confess. I'll confess to everything. Just don't. Too late for mercy. Dante nodded to Marcus. Get him out of here. Make sure his confession is filed by morning. As they dragged Kyle away, Ruby felt something shift inside her. She'd expected to feel satisfied watching these men crumble. Instead, she felt empty, like revenge wasn't filling the hole they'd carved into her soul. Dante noticed. You're wondering if this is enough. Is it? Will this make me feel whole again? No. Dante's honesty was brutal but real. Revenge doesn't heal you, Ruby. It just stops them from hurting anyone else. Healing comes after, and it takes longer. But at least now you can heal without wondering if they're out there, laughing, doing this to someone else. Ruby nodded slowly, tears streaming down her face. One more? Trevor. I saved him for last. Dante's eyes went dark. Because he was the leader, the planner, the one who organized your assault like it was a team-building exercise. And for that, he gets special treatment. Trevor Walsh was in his luxury penthouse, drinking scotch worth more than most people's cars, thinking he'd escaped. Jason was the FBI's problem. Kyle had disappeared. And Trevor? Trevor had his father's lawyers on speed dial, his plane ticket to London ready, his alibi perfect. He'd gotten away with it. Again, the lights went out. Trevor put down his glass. What the? Emergency backup didn't kick in. His phone was dead. The elevator was dead. Even the exit signs went dark. Trevor stumbled through his penthouse in pitch darkness, heart starting to race. Hello? Is someone there? Dante's voice cut through the darkness like a blade. Hello, Trevor. Trevor screamed, spun around, saw nothing but shadows and the faint outline of a man who shouldn't be there, couldn't be there. His security was top tier. How did you? Your security works for me now. Your doorman. Your building manager. Even your father's assistant who booked your flight to London? She called me the second you bought that ticket. Dante stepped into the sliver of moonlight from the window. Did you really think you could hurt someone in NY City and just fly away? Trevor tried to run, made it 5 steps before Marcus and 2 other men appeared, blocking every exit like they'd materialized from the walls. I don't know what you're talking about. I didn't. Ruby Morrison. You beat her in an alley 6 days ago. Left her for dead because she had the audacity to reject you. Dante's voice was conversational, almost friendly, which somehow made it more terrifying. Ring any bells? Trevor's face went pale. That was, look, she's fine, okay? It was just what? Dante's composure cracked. Just a lesson? Just teaching her manners? Just attempted murder because your ego couldn't handle rejection. They dragged Trevor out of his penthouse, down the service elevator his own security had unlocked, into a black SUV with tinted windows. They drove him to the exact same alley where he'd attacked Ruby. Rain was falling again, puddles reflecting streetlights. The smell of garbage and desperation. Trevor was sobbing now, all his arrogance gone. Please, my father has money. I can pay you. Name your price. Your father has nothing I need. Dante grabbed Trevor by his designer collar. But you? You owe a debt that can't be paid with money. Marcus and the crew beat Trevor with clinical precision. Broke 3 ribs, the same number Ruby had broken. Fractured his wrist, the same injury. Left him bleeding in the MUD, the same place he'd left Ruby. But they didn't kill him. That would be mercy. Instead, Dante knelt down next to Trevor's broken body and whispered, "You're going to survive this. You're going to heal. And then you're going to prison. I've already talked to certain inmates there. Men who have very strong opinions about entitled brats who hurt women. They're excited to meet you. Trevor, every single day for the next 25 years, you're going to remember this moment. You're going to remember Ruby's face. And you're going to wish I'd killed you instead." Dante called 911 himself. Reported an assault victim in the alley. By the time cops arrived, Dante and his crew were gone. And Trevor was left exactly how he'd left Ruby, broken, bleeding, and begging for help that came too late. Back at the penthouse, Ruby was watching through Vincent's surveillance feeds. She saw everything. And when it was over, she felt something she hadn't felt in days. Relief. Not happiness. Not satisfaction. Just relief. Like a weight had been lifted. When Dante returned, Ruby was waiting. She didn't say anything, just walked up to him and hugged him. This dangerous man who'd become her protector, her avenger, her unlikely hero. Dante stiffened. He wasn't used to genuine affection, then slowly wrapped his arms around her. "Thank you," Ruby whispered, "for seeing me, for believing me, for making them pay." Dante's voice was soft, almost gentle. "No one hurts you and walks away. Not on my watch. Not ever again." And Ruby realized something terrifying and wonderful at the same time. She was falling in love with a mafia boss. The trial was a circus. 3 weeks after Dante's reckoning, Trevor Walsh, Kyle Morrison, and Jason Chin sat in a Manhattan courtroom facing charges that would put them away for decades. Attempted murder, aggravated assault, conspiracy, and thanks to Kyle's confession, which he gave while sobbing to detectives, they couldn't hide behind their lawyers anymore. The courtroom was packed. Media, victims' families, and Ruby Morrison, sitting in the front row with Dante beside her like a shadow that refused to leave. Kyle's confession had opened the floodgates. For other women, women who'd been paid off, silenced, erased, came forward with their own stories. The pattern was identical. Rejection, rage, violence, payoffs, buried police reports. These 3 men had been hunting women for years, and everyone had looked the other way because they had money and connections and the kind of privilege that made them think they were untouchable. Not anymore. Ruby had to testify, had to stand up in front of cameras and lawyers and Trevor's smug face and relive the worst night of her life. Her hands shook as she described the alley, the rain, the beating, the blood. But every time her voice wavered, she'd look at Dante in the back row. He'd nod once, just once, and that was enough. He was there. He believed her. And if she could survive what happened in that alley, she could survive this. The defense lawyers tried to destroy her credibility, tried to paint her as a liar, a gold digger, someone who'd invented this story for attention. "Isn't it true, Ms. Morrison, that you're currently living with Dante Moretti, a known criminal figure? Isn't it possible this entire story was fabricated too?" Ruby cut him off. Her voice was steel. "Yes, I'm living with Dante Moretti. He saved my life when no one else would. He gave me justice when the system failed me. Your clients left me bleeding in an alley, and Dante found me. He believed me. And if that makes me biased, then I'm guilty. But your clients? They're guilty of something worse." The courtroom went silent. Even the judge looked impressed. The jury deliberated for 8 hours. Ruby sat in the hallway outside the courtroom, Dante beside her, neither of them speaking. Just waiting. The weight of everything pressing down like a physical force. Finally, the call came. The jury had reached a verdict. Ruby walked back into that courtroom feeling like she was walking to her own execution. Trevor, Kyle, and Jason sat at the defense table looking pale, their expensive suits suddenly looking like costumes instead of armor. On the charge of attempted murder in the first degree, how do you find the defendant Trevor Walsh? The jury foreman stood. Guilty. Ruby's legs almost gave out. On the charge of aggravated assault, how do you find the defendant Kyle Morrison? Guilty. Tears streamed down Ruby's face. On the charge of conspiracy to commit assault, how do you find the defendant Jason Chin? Guilty. The courtroom erupted. Victims crying. Families cheering. Media rushing to capture every second. Trevor screamed at the jury, had to be restrained by bailiffs. Kyle buried his face in his hands. Jason just stared at the table like his brain had short-circuited. Sentencing came 2 weeks later. Trevor Walsh, 25 years in maximum security. Kyle Morrison, 20 years. Jason Chun, 18 years. No parole, no early release, no daddy's money buying their way out. Outside the courthouse, Ruby faced a wall of cameras and reporters screaming questions. Ruby, how does it feel to get justice? Ruby, are the rumors true about you and Dante Moretti? Ruby, what do you want to say to other survivors? Ruby looked directly into the cameras, her voice strong, her spine straight. To every woman who's been hurt and silenced, I see you. I believe you. And you deserve justice. Don't let anyone tell you that you don't matter because of who you are or where you come from. I was a broke singer in a dive bar, and I took down 3 of the most privileged men in this city. If I can do it, you can do it. The clip went viral within hours. 5 million views by evening. 10 million by the next morning. Ruby Morrison became a symbol, a voice for the silenced. A warrior who'd stared down her attackers and won. Record labels started calling. 6 months later, everything had changed. Ruby's debut album, Phoenix, named after her rise from the ashes, hit the Billboard Top 10. Critics called it raw, powerful, the voice of a generation. Her single, Shadows and Light, was playing on every radio station in America. She wasn't singing in dive bars anymore. She was selling out Madison Square Garden. Her mother's cancer treatment was fully funded. Dante had quietly paid for everything, and when Ruby found out, she'd cried for an hour. Her mom was in remission now, living in a beautiful apartment in Manhattan that Ruby thought she'd bought herself, but Dante had actually purchased under a shell company. He let her believe she'd done it on her own. That was the kind of man he was. But the biggest change? Ruby and Dante were together. Not just protector and survivor. Partners. Lovers. Two broken people who'd found wholeness in each other. Dante was different around her. Softer. He actually smiled now. Real smiles that reached his eyes. His crew noticed the change. Marcus joked that Ruby had domesticated the beast, which earned him a death glare, but also wasn't entirely wrong. Dante still ran his empire. Still made men disappear when they crossed him. But now he came home to Ruby, to light, to someone who saw past the violence to the man underneath. On a Thursday night, Ruby performed at a charity gala Dante hosted for assault survivors. The room was filled with Manhattan's elite. Some there because they cared, others because refusing Dante Moretti's invitation was suicide, but Ruby didn't care about them. She sang The Man in the Shadows, a song she'd written about the night Dante found her. About darkness and rescue and finding love in the most unexpected place. There wasn't a dry eye in the room by the time she finished. After the performance, Dante took Ruby to the rooftop terrace overlooking the city. Manhattan sparkled below them like a million promises waiting to be kept. "You know what I do," Dante said quietly, his hand intertwined with hers. "Who I am. The blood on my hands. You could have anyone. Someone clean, someone safe, someone who doesn't have enemies who'd kill you just to hurt me. Why stay?" Ruby turned to him, grabbed his face with both hands, fierce and certain. "Because you saw me when I was invisible. You fought for me when I couldn't fight for myself. You gave me justice when the world wanted to ignore me. You're the best man I know, Dante Moretti, and I don't care what anyone else thinks." Dante kissed her like she was oxygen, and he'd been drowning his entire life. Ruby pulled back, smiled through happy tears. "You saved me, but I think I saved you too." Dante's smile was rare, genuine, beautiful. "You did. You absolutely did." In that moment, overlooking the city that had tried to destroy them both, Ruby Morrison realized something profound. She'd been invisible for 26 years. A woman cleaning tables and singing to empty rooms while the world walked past like she didn't exist. But in the moment that mattered most, she chose to be seen. She chose courage over silence. She chose to fight instead of hide. And she didn't just survive, she thrived. Trevor Walsh, Kyle Morrison, and Jason Chen thought they could hurt a woman and walk away. They were wrong, because they attacked her on Dante Moretti's streets. And Dante Moretti never forgets. They wanted to break Ruby Morrison. Instead, they created a phoenix. And her protector? He became her love, her home, her forever. Because sometimes, the person who saves you isn't a knight in shining armor. If this story set your soul on fire, if Ruby's courage made you want to stand up and fight, if you believe in justice for the forgotten, then you need to hit that subscribe button right now. Smash that like button like you're punching Trevor Walsh in the face. Drop a comment telling me, would you want Dante Moretti in your corner?